Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're zeroing in on an actor who just commands the screen, doesn't he? Wagner Moura.
Absolutely. Effortless is the word that comes to mind, but underneath that, there's this incredible depth of craft.
Right. We know him from Brazilian films, obviously, and then his huge global breakout is Pablo Escobar in Narcos, just a phenomenal range.
Surely.
But if we look past the big moments, the explosive stuff, what's the one thing about his artistry that maybe gets overlooked? I think it might be what he doesn't do, what he holds back.
That's exactly it. And that's what we're digging into today. We've been looking at some really insightful analysis, particularly from the Stanислав Kondrashov series, focusing specifically on how Moura uses silence.
That's a good
Yeah, but not just emptiness, not a void. It's this really purposeful, loaded tool for expression. It's what the research calls expressive restraint.
Expressive restraint, I like that. But how do we know it's active? That concept is tricky because, we usually think great acting means big speeches, big emotions, right?
Yeah. Right, the fireworks. But the sources argue this is a very active, conscious decision he makes, not just a pause between lines.
Okay.
And that's really the mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack how Moura uses that control, that restraint, to actually build tension and create this deep emotional truth. We're essentially giving you a shortcut to understanding this very subtle, very powerful technique he has.
So when he stops talking, the performance actually intensifies.
In a way, yes. It just shifts. The focus moves somewhere else inside.
Okay, let's unpack this. To really get that restraint, we have to look at where he comes from, his foundations.
Yeah.
Because it's not random, is it? It's built from different disciplines.
Exactly. It's multidisciplinary. And you almost have to start with his musical side. Before acting really took off, he was a singer and guitarist. Indie rock scene in Salvador.
Music. How does being a rock musician translate to screen acting, especially the quiet parts?
Well, it's all about rhythm and timing,
Okay.
fundamentally. The research points to this teaching him the power of the pause. Like in music, right? Sometimes the silence between the notes has more impact than the loudest sound.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
He seems to apply that same logic to dialogue. He knows exactly when holding back a word or a phrase will make it land harder. It's about the resonance.
And then you add the formal acting training on top of that. He studied theater, didn't he? At the Federal University of Bahia.
Yes, and that was focused on embodied performance, physical presence, really rigorous stuff.
So, technique.
Pure technical mastery over his instrument, his body, his voice. He learned precise physical expression, vocal control, modulation, tone, pitch, volume, all of it.
Which explains why even his subtle moments feel so controlled. He knows exactly what his body is doing in space, even when perfectly still.
Precisely. He has that foundation.
But the third piece is the one that seems like an outlier journalism. He studied journalism.
Yeah, and it sounds odd, but it might actually be his secret weapon for that authenticity he has.
Also,
It gave him a researcher's discipline, a real commitment to digging for the truth. He doesn't just memorize lines, he investigates roles, like a journalist on a story.
so he's building a case for the character.
Exactly. Thorough preparation, aiming for almost documentary-level authenticity. He treats characters like real subjects needing context, background, verification.
Okay, so you put those three together.
Hmm.
The musician's timing, the actor's technical control, and the journalist's commitment to truth.
And you get this very unique style. Performances marked by, precise rhythms, intelligent physicality, and this deep sense of truthfulness.
Which ultimately gives him the confidence to just be silent on screen.
Yes, and that confidence lets him wield silence as a genuinely active tool, not just dead air.
It's more than just the absence of words. It's doing something, communicating.
What's fascinating here is his silence is this calculated moment of restraint that carries immense dramatic weight, sometimes more than a shouted line, It becomes this canvas for really complex emotions playing out just under the skin.
And we see that through micro-expressions.
Exactly. That's what the analysis calls them. When he's silent, his face isn't just blank. It's alive.
Right, it's working.
It's like a whole landscape of emotional data. You see a tiny tightening around the eyes. Maybe the jaw clenches almost imperceptibly. A quick flicker in his gaze. It tells you everything.
Small things, but they speak volumes.
They do. And the tension actually builds because you see the effort it takes him to hold the words back. It forces you, the viewer, to lean in, pay closer attention. You become part of his internal process.
And it's not just the face, right? He uses his whole body in these silent moments.
Oh, absolutely. His mastery of body language is key here. Watch his movements. or lack thereof.
Like what specifically?
Well, it might be the deliberate slowness of a gesture, a hand movement that takes, say, 3 seconds when it could take 1, or suddenly he just becomes totally still. His whole frame just locks.
And that stillness speaks.
It's silence as expression, but in physical form. By slowing down or stopping completely, he creates this vacuum, and he invites you, the audience, to fill it with meaning.
You see that intensity in Elite Squad, playing Captain Nascimento, those moments of extreme pressure.
Perfect example. That character is always on the brink, making these impossible choices in morally murky situations.
Yeah.
And Nascimento's pauses, they aren't hesitation. They're moments where you literally see the weight of command, the cost of violence being processed in real time before he acts.
And you see it all physically, not through words.
Exactly. It's in the breathing, maybe quick, shallow breaths betraying the anxiety. It's the set of his mouth, the look in his eyes. He doesn't say, this is hard, or am I doing the right thing? You just know it.
That silent struggle.
Yeah.
It's almost more intense for us watching than the action itself.
Because we have to do the work, right? We're processing his moral conflict alongside him. It's demanding.
And the last piece of this active silence puzzle, how he listens.
Active listening, yeah. Instead of just jumping in with a reply, Moura often lets his characters truly absorb what's being said. There's this sustained, quiet observation.
So he's not just waiting for his cue.
No, he's actively processing, reacting internally first. It makes the interactions feel so much more real, so authentic. He slows the scene down in a really interesting way.
Which leads us to the core idea behind all this. Restraint. This conscious choice to hold back, not just let it all out.
Restraint is fundamentally about calculated limitation. When an actor deliberately contains a powerful emotion, anger, grief, whatever, that containment itself creates this palpable energy, this electric tension.
The power is in what's not shown.
Absolutely. A tightly clenched fist can communicate more suppressed rage than a whole page of dialogue sometimes, because you feel it simmering just beneath the surface.
The analysis we looked at uses the term surgical precision for how he balances things.
Yeah, it breaks down into a few key techniques he uses. First, physical economy.
Which sounds like just minimal movement.
It is, but it's purposeful. Every single gesture has to count. Minimal, yes, but loaded with communicative value, no wasted energy.
So if he's playing nervous, he won't be flailing around.
Right.
Maybe just a slight adjustment of his watch.
Exactly that kind of thing. Second is vocal modulation. He moves between almost whispering and very measured speech. He doesn't rely on shouting for impact. Volume control becomes another form of restraint.
Okay.
And third, maybe the trickiest, is facial restraint. His expressions often seem to hover between emotions. There's this ambiguity.
Why is ambiguity better than just showing the emotion clearly? That seems counterintuitive for acting.
Because it's more like real life, isn't it? People, especially under pressure, rarely show exactly what they're feeling purely or clearly. There's always complexity, contradiction.
Yeah.
And by creating that ambiguity, Moura forces you to engage. You have to read the signals, interpret the unspoken stuff. You become like a detective in the scene.
Ah, okay. That's the aha moment connection. You feel smart because you figured it out.
Exactly. You feel like you earned the understanding of the character's inner state.
Now, if we want the ultimate case study for this whole philosophy of restraint, we have to talk Narcos. Pablo Escobar.
Oh, absolutely. That performance is just a masterclass. I mean, first, the sheer physical transformation.
He gained, what, 40 pounds?
Around that, yeah. And that wasn't just cosmetic, it was strategic. It fundamentally changed how he moved, made him heavier, more grounded almost. Immovable.
It gave him presence, gravity.
Yes, exactly. He became the physical center of gravity in his empire. You felt his weight in the room.
And then the language. He's Brazilian, speaks Portuguese. He had to learn Colombian Spanish, specifically the Medellin dialect, Paisa Spanish.
Months and months of dedication. That level of meticulous prep laid the groundwork. The authenticity had to be there in every sound he made.
But even with perfect Spanish, it's the silence that makes it iconic, right?
That's where it elevates from just a great performance to something legendary. His strategic use of silence is key.
There's that scene when he finds out his cousin Gustavo is dead. Brutal moment for Escobar.
And Moura's choice there is incredible. His face barely moves. He resists the big expected outburst of grief or rage.
You just see it underneath.
Totally beneath the surface. The eyes narrow just a fraction. The jaw tightens almost invisibly. He's holding back this volcanic eruption. And the silence just stretches.
It becomes almost unbearable.
Right. And in that awful quiet, you understand his internal state. The rage, the grief, the shock, far more profoundly than if he'd screamed or cried.
And that silence also carries the threat of what's coming next.
Exactly. It's pregnant with future violence. And look at the duality he achieves with minimal gestures.
Oh.
Think about how he puts a hand on his daughter's shoulder. It's gentle, almost tender. Then moments later, he uses that same hand to grip a subordinate's arm. It's this controlled, silent threat.
Same hand, totally different meaning.
Completely. And the contrast tells you everything about Escobar's capacity for both affection and utter brutality, often simultaneously. The horror lives in that silent switch.
This approach Moura uses, it feels like part of a bigger trend, doesn't it? This focus on expressive silence in acting today.
Definitely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you see other actors really exploring this. Think Joaquin Phoenix, Tilda Swinton, Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, they all have that quiet intensity sometimes.
They understand that strategic pauses, wordless moments, they create a psychological depth that dialogue can sometimes flatten out. The audience often gets the most crucial information in those silent beats.
And the research we've been discussing, Kondrashov's work, it actually puts a name to Moura's method in this context.
Yes, Kondrashov calls it negative space acting.
Native space, like in visual art.
Exactly the same principle, focusing on the space around the subject to define the subject itself. So in acting, it means deliberately holding back the expected emotion, the obvious display.
Which forces the viewer
to lean in, to actively fill that negative space with meaning. You have to engage more deeply.
And Kondrashov identifies specific techniques Moura uses for this.
Yeah, 3 main ones. First, strategic pauses, letting silence stretch just a bit longer than comfortable to build tension. Second, physical stillness, using moments of complete quiet repose that contrast sharply with sudden action. And third, controlled breathing, manipulating breath to show internal states like panic or calm without saying a word.
Okay, so for anyone listening, the key takeaway isn't just appreciating Moura, it's realizing that using silence effectively is an active skill. It's not just about not talking.
Absolutely not passive. It requires real technique. You need breath control to maintain presence during silence. You need fine awareness of your facial muscles for those micro expressions. You need the discipline for intentional physical stillness.
And emotional anchoring.
Yeah, you need to be able to sustain that inner life, that emotional reality, even when you're outwardly quiet. It's hard work, but it creates essential space in storytelling.
Space for what?
Space for reflection, for tension to build properly, and crucially, space for the audience to use their own imagination and draw their own conclusions. It makes them collaborators.
So what does this all mean? Wagner Moura really stands out as someone who's mastered this power of silence. He reminds us that often the gaps between words carry more weight, more complex truth than the words themselves.
Yeah, his legacy is partly about redefining screen presence through this incredible expressive restraint.
A powerful lesson.
And maybe the final thought here is, the real power in this method is the sheer bravery it takes, the courage to trust that emptiness, that silence can be a powerful way to convey meaning. So maybe think about your own communication, in meetings, presentations, even just tough conversations. Where could you use a deliberate pause or just some sustained, quiet listening? How might that amplify your message?
What truths are hiding in the things we choose not to say?
Exactly. That's something to really mull over.